Welcome to Global Tax Talks Tax in 60 Seconds. I'm Will Morris, and here are some things to watch out for in the coming week. The ongoing UN versus OECD competition continues, and last week's winner looks to be the UN. After the G20 leaders meeting in Rio de Janeiro, the G20 issued a declaration, itself something of a rarity these days, which contained a couple of paragraphs on tax. There was a short pro forma paragraph on the inclusive framework and the two pillars, but much more talk about the UN and direct reference to continuing constructive discussions on the upcoming UN Convention on Tax Cooperation. The declaration also specifically referred to international tax cooperation being inclusive, effective, and aimed at reaching broad consensus while maximizing synergies amongst existing international fora. Now, while the language is general, this is a different tone and a theme that may be picked up by the next presidency of the G20, which is South Africa. It's worth noting the declaration actually devoted more space to personal taxation than corporate taxation, with its focus on taxation of ultra-high net worth individuals. And the declaration emphasized and re-emphasized the need to tackle and reduce economic inequalities, including through the tax system. And this is something that is very likely will carry over to the next G20, although Argentina signaled some disagreement and the new US administration may have different priorities. But I think it's a sign, at least in terms of the public conversation, that different voices are beginning to be heard. On a slightly different note, the former OECD tax director, Pascal Saint-Amand, wrote an article last week that I suspect was intended to be somewhat provocative. Entitled "One Bad Apple Decision, EU Tax Ruling Entrenches Distortions," Pascal argues that, in quotes, Ireland's massive tax windfall highlights once again the pressing need for reform of profit allocation rules. Now, if an EU-level conversation starts, it will need to overcome the EU unanimity rules, which one might suspect would be rather difficult. And there will also be the suspicion, perhaps justified, among smaller countries that this is another effort to reallocate profits to larger jurisdictions away from those smaller ones. But it is another sign that the long-standing consensus on profit allocation continues to break down, and this is leading to further uncertainty. We probably do need to revisit this question, but as with Pillar 1, we shouldn't jump straight to solutions, but actually start with a fundamental policy discussion about what justifies allocation among countries. Yes, that Pillar 1 policy discussion that never happened. Ah well. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and come back next week so that you stay global tax ready.